The knock came like a warning shot to the night, heavy and relentless, rattling the thin wood of the door as rain lashed the porch and the wind howled through the broken streetlights, and in that moment Emily Carter knew that whatever waited on the other side would change her life forever, because desperation has a sound, and this knock was screaming. Before the story goes any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of ordinary people doing extraordinary things, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment below, and subscribe to the channel, and tell us where you're watching from, because stories like this connect hearts across the world. Emily Carter had learned to live with fear the way others live with background noise. It was always there, humming beneath every thought, ever since her husband Daniel was taken by a drunk driver on a winter road that never even made the news. At 32, she was a widow with 2 children, Lily and Noah, living in a crumbling rental house at the edge of a forgotten town, where jobs disappeared faster than people could pack their bags. Every morning she woke before dawn, making lunches with trembling hands, counting pills, counting dollars, counting breaths, hoping that today would be easier than yesterday. Lily was 7 and had eyes too old for her age, and Noah was 4, small and fragile, his lungs weak from a condition the doctors explained in words Emily barely understood but felt in her bones every time he struggled to breathe. That night, the power had gone out again, and the house smelled of damp wood and cold air. Emily had wrapped her children in blankets and prayed that the generator at the clinic would keep running if they needed it, because Noah's cough had been getting worse all day. When the knock thundered again, her heart leapt into her throat. In this town, late-night knocks never meant good news. She peered through the cracked curtain and saw them, a line of motorcycles glistening under the rain, engines rumbling like distant thunder, and men standing tall and unmoving, leather jackets dark and heavy, patches unmistakable even in the dim light. Hell's Angels. The name alone carried 1,000 stories, most of them ugly, most of them ending badly. Emily's first instinct was to hide, to gather her children and retreat to the back room, to pretend the house was empty like she sometimes did when debt collectors came. But then she heard Noah's breathing, shallow and desperate, and felt Lily clutch her arm, whispering fear without words. Something inside Emily broke open, a dam of exhaustion and terror and love all crashing together. She opened the door. The rain-soaked men looked like statues carved from shadow, faces hard, eyes sharp, the kind of men mothers warn their children about. One of them, taller than the rest, with a graying beard and eyes that seemed to have seen too much, looked past Emily into the house. He noticed the flickering candle, the thin blankets, the pale faces of the children. Emily didn't know what she expected to feel, but it wasn't this strange stillness, as if time itself had paused to watch what she would do next. Her voice came out raw and broken as she begged without pride or shame, because when your children are sick and the world has turned its back on you, pride becomes a luxury you cannot afford. She begged because she had nothing left but truth, and the truth was that her children were dying in slow, quiet ways that no one seemed to notice. The men did not move at first. Rain ran down their jackets and pooled at their boots. Emily felt the weight of every bad decision, every missed opportunity, every night she cried alone after the kids were asleep. She expected laughter, or anger, or worse, but what she saw instead was hesitation. The tall man finally nodded once, a small motion that somehow felt enormous, and stepped forward, lowering himself so his eyes were level with Emily's. He asked no questions she couldn't answer, made no promises he couldn't keep, and in that moment Emily sensed something shift, like a door opening in a place she thought had been sealed forever. They came inside, bringing the storm with them, dripping water onto the worn floorboards, filling the tiny living room with the smell of rain, oil, and leather. The house felt even smaller with them there, but also, strangely, safer. One man checked Noah's breathing with surprising gentleness, another found the old phone and coaxed it back to life to call for help, and someone else lit more candles, chasing the shadows back into the corners. Emily watched in disbelief as these men, feared and judged by the world, moved with quiet purpose around her children, their rough hands careful, their voices low and steady. The hours that followed blurred together in a haze of fear and hope. An ambulance arrived, its lights cutting through the darkness, and Noah was rushed to the hospital with Lily clinging to Emily's coat. Emily rode with her children, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst, while the men followed on their bikes, a strange procession through empty streets. At the hospital, as doctors and nurses took over, Emily collapsed into a chair, her body finally giving in to exhaustion. She expected the men to leave then, to disappear back into the night like a dream she would later doubt, but they stayed. They stood in the hallway, silent sentinels, ignoring the stares and whispers, because in that moment none of that mattered. Days turned into nights and back again as Noah fought for breath and Lily developed a fever of her own, worn down by stress and cold. Emily barely slept, barely ate, living on coffee and fear. Every bill, every form, every conversation with hospital staff reminded her of how alone she was, how thin the line was between survival and collapse. And every time she looked up, one of the men was there, bringing food, talking to nurses, making calls she didn't know how to make, filling gaps she didn't even realize existed. The tall man, whose name she learned was Michael, spoke softly about his own past, about mistakes and losses that didn't fit the stereotypes she'd been taught. He didn't ask for forgiveness or gratitude. He simply showed up. Word spread through the hospital and then through the town, a story whispered and then spoken aloud, about a group of bikers who had answered a mother's plea. Some people scoffed, some shook their heads, but others felt something stir inside them, a reminder that the world is more complicated than the boxes we put people in. Donations began to arrive, small at first, then larger, envelopes left at the nurse's station, meals delivered anonymously, a community slowly waking up to one of its own. Emily watched it happen with awe and confusion, tears streaming down her face as she realized that kindness, once unleashed, can move faster than despair. Noah stabilized, his tiny chest rising and falling with less effort, and Lily's fever broke one quiet morning as sunlight spilled through the hospital window. Emily held her children and cried until she had no tears left, the kind of crying that empties you out and fills you back up at the same time. The men were there when the doctor delivered the good news, their relief plain and unguarded. They celebrated without noise or spectacle, a few nods, a hand on a shoulder, the shared understanding of people who know how close they came to losing something irreplaceable. When the children were finally discharged, Emily faced another fear, returning to the cold, broken house that had nearly failed them. She didn't know how she would keep going, how she would pay the bills, how she would protect her children from a world that seemed so ready to forget them. But when she arrived home, she found the impossible waiting for her. The house was warm, the power restored, repairs already underway. Groceries filled the kitchen, new blankets covered the beds, and a note sat on the table, simple and unadorned, reminding her that help can come from unexpected places and that she was not alone. Life did not magically become easy after that. Emily still worked long hours, still worried about money, still woke up some nights gripped by fear. But something fundamental had changed. She carried with her the memory of that knock, of the moment she chose to open the door instead of hiding, and how that choice rippled outward in ways she could never have predicted. She learned to ask for help without shame, to offer it without judgment, and to teach her children that people are more than their reputations. Months later, on a clear afternoon, Emily watched Lily and Noah play in the yard, their laughter filling the air like music. A familiar rumble approached, and the motorcycles appeared at the end of the street, not as a threat but as a reminder. The men stopped only briefly, exchanging waves and smiles, before riding on, their presence felt even after they were gone. Emily stood there for a long time, hand over her heart, thinking about how close she had come to losing everything, and how opening her door had opened her life in ways she never imagined. If this story has touched your heart, if it's reminded you that compassion can come from the most unexpected places and that one brave moment can change everything, please take a second to like this video, share it, and let us know how it made you feel, because your engagement helps stories like this reach others who need hope. Please comment what this story made you feel and whether you believe one act of kindness can change a life forever. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned gold and then deep blue, Emily gathered her children close, breathing in their warmth, knowing that the world was still uncertain and often cruel, but also capable of astonishing grace, and that sometimes, when you open your door at your darkest moment, you don't let the danger in, you let the light finally find you.